transition to a circular economy model smoothly and how the loop can be closed. Today, the topic of our discussion will be the role of technology in circular economy and can innovations help us overcome the challenges faced during transition. Now, without any further ado, I would like to welcome the speakers of today's session. We have with us Ms. Devyani Hari. She is the Director of Center for Responsible Business. CRB is a think tank with a vision that businesses integrate sustainability into their core operations. At CRB, she manages the projects for SMEs and sustainability, sustainable value chains, the interface between SDGs and the private sector, sustainable finance and circular economy, particularly relating to circular apparel. Ms. Hari has previously worked with JP Morgan and GIZ, where she contributed in renewable energy financing consulting and worked with SMEs and SME bankers to increase lending for sustainable investments, especially for clean energy. Welcome, Devyani, for lending us your precious time today. Then we have Mr. Uday Gupta, Director Zecomi, a digital technology platform a digital technology company that promotes circular economy in the waste management landscape and endeavors to bring transparency and traceability in this ecosystem, applying technology levers. A graduate in mechanical engineering and a postgraduate in applied mechanics. Mr. Uday worked for 40 years in both ferrous and non-ferrous metal spaces in various capacities. He's been a production head, director, business head, and managing director and executive director as well at various renowned companies in his space. He currently mentors startups in various sectors and in various capacities for scale-up and organization building. Welcome, Mr. Uday, to the webinar.
Thank you so much, Surely.
Welcome, sir. Our third speaker of the day is Alison Jose. She is the CEO of Circularity Digital Product Passport via RFID threads. Alison is from Sydney and she is currently staying in Kerala, South India. Her company offers Circularity and RFID threads, the world's first radio frequency digital ID in a single washable thread that links products to a unique circular digital product passport. Alison also develops and wholesales sustainable textiles produced in India, focusing on wealth from waste and removing plastic textiles with her revolutionary eco-stretch stretch knit textiles that are safe to home compost, leaving zero toxic plastic microfibers. Alison is working with Manipal Academy of Higher Education and Citra to create a certification for banana plant textiles. Thanks, Alison, for your time today.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Then we have Mr. Jay Kumar Gaurav, Senior Advisor, Climate Change and Circular Economy, GIZ India. Mr. Jay is a climate change and environment sector professional with around 14 years of diverse experience. He is currently working as Senior Advisor, Climate Change and Circular Economy in GIZ India. Prior to GIZ, he has worked with Adelphi GmbH, International Development Enterprises India, UNDP, and Syndicatum Carbon Capital on climate change mitigation and adaptation projects. Thanks, Jay, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Survi. Thanks.
Yeah. And now I'm handing over the session to our moderator, Dr. Sudhanshu Joshi. He is the coordinator of PM Gati Shakti Center of Excellence, School of Management, Doon University. Before I let him lead the discussion, let me introduce him to you all. Dr. Sudhanshu holds a PhD in Supply Chain Management, and he is a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and Discipline Agile Scrum Master. He is a visiting professor at the University of Technology, Sydney, Australia, and has an 19H index with 1200 plus citations from 60 plus publications as per Scopus database. His research spans sustainable supply chains, AI, circular economy, Industry 4.0, 5.0, and more. Thanks, Dr. Sudhanshu, for all the collaborative efforts that you are making. Now, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So it's a collaboration.
It's
We
a
are into
collaboration. We are
second, round of webinar. So under the series, today we are having, a session on the role of technology in the circular economy. Can innovative solution help us to overcome the challenges? So on behalf of PM Gati Shakti Center of Excellence, School of Management at Doon University, and jointly on behalf of ICCE. So I welcome you all, especially our guests today, guest speakers today. And as we know, the circular economy is an economical system that aims to eliminate the waste and the pollution, and to circulate products and materials at their possible highest value. It is fundamentally a different way of thinking about how we can produce and consume goods and services. Now, when it comes to digital technology and innovation, it plays a very, very important role. So it helps you to track the movement of the goods, right? We have the technology in hand like blockchain. We have starting from QR codes till RFID. We start talking about IIoT and additive manufacturing. Smart sensors are in place. Big data technologies are coming up, and it is complementing the organizational standards for maintaining the quality, including just-in-time quality 4.0. We often talk about. And when it comes to circularity, the innovation is lying on costing part, infrastructure upgradation, consumption orientation, and it is going join hand to hand with the government policy and public power partnership also. So when it comes to today's discussion, I wish to as an opportunity given, and I wish to also take this opportunity to have discussion on the various practices that the economies are doing across various industries like electronics and technology. The kind of companies, including Apple, they are putting their hard research and development on longevity and the recyclability of the products. So initiative like Apple Trade-in and recycling initiatives are helping them to get connected with the customers. So that's why this company is, from the last 2 decades, it's in the top 5 Forbes listed companies. When it comes to Dell is, opted for the closed loop recycling programs, using the reclaimed, plastics from the old economies for old, electronic goods to create the new computer parts. So it's a traditional old, things that Michael Dell has infused into the Dell's culture. When it comes to fashion and apparels, T-Mill could be a great example to quote here, which is a small, private MSE. And T-Mill is into the production of T-shirts, which do some sort of recycling and collect the stuff from the consumers by adding great IT solutions. This company is providing a lot many of KPIs to the free of usage to the customers, and variety of other competitors as well, so that they can customize their new product lines, so that repurposing and the redesign can take care in the circular economy that T-Mill has introduced to themselves as well as to the other counterparts. Similarly, we have the example of Patagonia. Patagonia is into repair and resale of the products. Warwear, initiative they have done. H&M is not excluding, is an exclusive solution here. We can't exclude H&M. H&M offers clothes recycling into the stores and uses the recycling material into the clothing lines. And when it comes to automobile, Tesla could be a good example where they have introduced and promoting EVs to the world through sustainable transportation, recycling of the reducing emissions and producing the circularity of the lithium-ion batteries. We have Renault as an example. Renault is trying to explore more on the vehicle recycling, battery reuse, and it's putting their great R&D into the sustainable efforts. We have an example of Unilever when it comes to FMCG industry and packaging, including Coca-Cola. They are into the PET recycling, not from now, from almost 3 decades. Food and beverage industry, Nestle and Danone is a great example to quote here. For retail and sharing economy, IKEA could be a great example. So we have ample of examples, and we have the gamut of great experts here. Those are adding up, value to our understanding about how circular innovation is happening. And to start with, we have our speaker first. We have Dr. Devyani Hari, who's a director with Center for Responsible Business. And as we know that Devyani Hari is a director of Center for Responsible Business, which is a think tank with a vision that business integrates sustainability into the core value operations. And from the last, almost 3 decades, she is contributing largely to the society through her initiatives when it comes to circularity and lot many of circular innovation that her organization is doing. And to start the discussion with, because I will take the opportunity to introduce the speakers at the initial stage and take the question directly to them. So I have a question to Ms. Devyani. Can we start with you, ma'am, with your kind permission?
Surely, sir.
Okay, so the question is actually, our audience is, they are interested to know the role of technology evolution in achieving a more circular economy and finally the net zero. So how generically the role of technology, how the technology has been evolved over the period of time, how it is being infused into the circular economies to obtain the net zero objective. Ma'am.
Okay, thank you for that question. Please call me Devyani, and it's not doctor. I think that's a clarification I have to end up giving everywhere. Thank you for this opportunity to ICCE and to you for providing this information. So I think in a nutshell, a very simple answer is that technology is going to play a big role and is playing a big role. It is not just going to, it is playing a big role when it comes to circular. Sir, I'm going to borrow a little from what you've already said, that circular, part of it is not new to us. Part of it was, so like you said, it is phasing out pollution, it is phasing out waste, and it is keeping materials in loop. Now, when it came to the part of keeping materials in loop, I think culturally, habit-wise, this was something we had, right? But we have come to a situation where we have a lot of waste. So one, I want to say that when I talk about technology, we have to look at circularity right from the design phase till the post-consumption, what happens to it, right? So we are not just talking about waste management. So traceability, of course, that's something you touched upon, and I think Mr. Gupta will probably touch on it because he's talking about, now today when we are talking about circularity and we are talking about keeping materials in the loop, traceability and transparency is a key requirement, especially when we look at clothes, right? When we look at apparel, when we look at food, and if we are looking at options, a lot of the startups, a lot of the innovators are providing solutions on traceability to give that comfort level that yes, there is a viable option or the waste is being disposed of in a responsible manner. So that one is an important one. But if I start right from the design phase, right? Let me take examples. You've already talked about the apparel industry and also the food industry, right? And not just food and beverage, but I'm talking right from production of food, agriculture point always. We are seeing a lot of innovation that's coming in, that how can you minimize waste at that? Can I reuse the agri residue that comes? Can I look at food waste that's being generated? Can I convert it into other materials? So there is a lot of development, innovation, technology coming on how you can utilize waste, but how you can actually save resources in the first place. So you have a lot of technology, innovation, and resource efficiency as well, right? And that is clear when you talk about net zero. Now, net zero is not just about taking back what I have put out in the environment, but in the first place, can I reduce what I put out in the environment? So when I talk about energy efficient machinery, when I talk about clean technology, when I talk about, let's say, the apparel industry, and I look at some sort of waterless dyeing, right? These are all innovations that are coming in, which are telling me that one, I'm looking at a reduced resource consumption. Then I come to the waste and I'm saying that, okay, can I utilize this resource much better and keep the resource? It could be in the same value chain, it could be in a different value chain, and it is giving a lot of opportunities to new startups. There is a lot of research, innovation, new companies which are coming up about, and I think Allison is offering one such solution on more sustainable materials that are being used, right? So when we talk about recycling, so recycling of garments is not just the only option, but also sustainable materials in the first place. We see a lot of innovators who are coming, and the good thing is that there is a fair bit of information that is beginning to come out there, right? Now, you shared some great examples, but I think there are also examples from the Indian context that you can put out there also. I mean, if you look at an organization like Fashion for Good, which started as an international concept, has presence in India. If you go to their website, you will actually be able to see innovations that Indian startups, innovators, manufacturers are bringing in as well when it comes to different aspects of circular fashion. So I think that is there. If we look at something like a Unido, which has worked a lot with small and medium scale enterprises, they have a whole host of technologies that are available that help the industry be more energy efficient. GIZ is putting out a lot of research there. Recently, there was a book, I think, which GIZ, along with other authors, Rachna, I think, did on innovations and circularity. And when we are talking about you've talked about technology innovation, but I think it's important to understand that innovation and circularity is coming from various angles. It's coming from financial innovation, it's coming from policy innovation, it is coming from collaboration, new models. And also technology and digitalization is also playing a very important role in connecting different stakeholders, like providers of waste to users of waste. That's one of the biggest gaps that you find, that I may have a model that is utilizing resource very efficiently, I may recycle, upcycle, but I don't have a steady stream of inputs. So platforms actually are coming and playing that role. I'm going to actually stop here, but there are a few thoughts that I want to leave, that, technology is no doubt going to play a very important role, but we also have to keep a few things in mind, right? Which is one, that we always have the issue of just transition, right? So we have to strike that balance, that would technology be the only solution? We would have to look at technology along with livelihoods when we are looking at innovations coming in. We are also looking at affordability and accessibility. Do we need, especially when we talk about small and medium scale enterprises. So if we have, let's say, wastewater recycling for large organizations, great, but can we create more solutions for SMEs? Because that's where the bigger challenge is, and that's where it is more difficult to control the problem. So affordability of that technology becomes very important. I think understanding of that technology, like I said, there's great resource available, but also ensuring that the right technology is suggested for a particular challenge. Because if you have a wrong fit, that actually becomes counterproductive than actually supporting the case. So the good understanding of what technology fits better. We may need indigenization. Yes, technology transfer will play an important role, but there will be cases, especially when you're talking about taking circularity across the supply chain. Right now, in the upper tiers of value chain, supply chains, it's easier to apply these. Those are formal. But as you keep moving lower in the value chain, then you also need to look at more customized, more affordable, and the complexity of the solution may actually differ. So I think those are certain things that you need to keep in mind. So just the thought that yes, technology will play a role. Two, the innovations already happening, and there are policies that are beginning to support that. There is information. But three, we need to keep certain caveats in mind when we are looking at the adoption of such technology. So I think with that, I wasn't too sure how much time I have, but with that, I would like to stop with this question.
Many thanks to you. So much insightful, and a lot of conceptual learning when it comes to the outcome of the discussion you made. So let me accelerate the discussion to our second speaker, who is Mr. Uday Gupta, Director with ZCOMI. Welcome, sir. Let me have a brief about the ZCOMI and his contribution as far as ZCOMI is concerned. ZCOMI is a digital technology company that promotes circular economy in the waste management landscape and endeavor to bring the transparency and traceability in the ecosystem, applying technology levers. As a senior advisor to Center for Responsibility Business, which is a think tank, Mr. Uday Gupta is contributing, and Mr. Uday Gupta is having more than 4 decades of experience with metal spaces in various capacity. He was a production head with Indian Aluminum Company, Indel, between 1982 till 1998, as a director of business head, rolling mills and coated product division of the first aluminium Nigerian PLC. He worked between 1998 to 2008 as a managing director with Mahindra Sanyo. He contributed as the executive director with GFG India as managing director with Othlic Metallics, and as a managing director with SBQ. So much of managerial responsibilities you carried, sir. Education-wise, his PGDM worked with MDI Gurgaon, and a lot of things. So I'm just taking it to the ZCOM now. Let us focus on ZCOM with such a rich experience. You are the key speaker for today. And when it comes to ZCOM, which is a digital company, is contributing to circular innovation by focusing on the waste management through leveraging the technology as per my understanding, and the variety of role that they are doing it into the promoting the circular economy, into the waste management, creating transparency and traceability based solutions, technology levers, waste reduction and resource optimization. So, sir, with a lot of efforts that your company is doing, I wish to know that how Zcomi incorporate technology for promoting circular economy as a straight question to you. So,
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joshi, and all the introduction that you made about me. It is not really circular because I just got kicked up in the hierarchy because I was not doing my role properly in the position that I was committed to. Coming to Zcomi, it's an interesting solution. It's a multi-sided platform, digital platform, where you start with exchanging materials. The second principle that you talked about, Dr. Joshi, in your introduction, just to keep the value going at the highest possible level, it all starts with waste management and recycling. I hear you, Devjani, what you are saying. It is not really end of life. It starts with design and kind of narrowing the whole system. But it started with that. We are connecting the B2B space to the waste processes. Then we realized that it is not only recycling, we can go for refurbishing, we can go for reselling. The ecosystem is getting prepared for it. To tell you very frankly, even 2 years back, people were not ready to buy a refurbished laptop because they're not too sure about the quality. But now, over a period of time, those kind of things are happening. And again, the digital technology and the transparency, the passport will become very, very important in time to come to strengthen that ecosystem. We are also connecting skills, actually. When you talk about repair, when you talk about refurbish, what kind of skills and competencies you need to have to do all such things, which are the higher R, as we call it, of the hierarchy. As per the customer demand, when we are working on waste ecosystem, they are also talking about, can you make it more transparent? I would like to understand what is happening with my output, the circular. Is it really circular? And hence the use of blockchain. But I'll tell you very frankly, in Indian ecosystem, it is slightly difficult because we work at the interface of formal and informal economy. And hence, lot of, kind of traceability is lost at some point of time. But nevertheless, we'll have to give it a hard try. It will happen some point of time. MITI has come up and CPCB has come up with kind of regulatory policy where you got to declare, the recyclers have to declare about what kind of gold, what amount of copper, what amount of aluminium, what amount of iron they are recovering from those waste which they are handling, dismantling and recycling. So again, the use of technology will be very, very important because we need to have an evidence-based approach in all those kind of things. There are issues which we are handling as Zcomi. It's mainly connecting the whole ecosystem across, right from exchange of material to providing them with skills and resources. People who would like to get into the higher R's of the circular economy. And it has been there for 4 years, and today we are building up a product which at one end it will handle the digital battery passport you have heard about, which is becoming mandatory in EU from 1st of January 2026. Then we are handling the evidence-based recycled input. I may claim that I have 20% recycled input in my system, but one has to kind of really trace it. What kind of biomaterial, what kind of renewable material, what are those recycled inputs, how it has traveled from one chain of custody to another chain of custody. So all these are very important, and Zcomi is trying to help this complete ecosystem as a start. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for telling us this whole story. So let me take the discussion to our third speaker, who is Alison Jose. She is CEO with Circular Link. So as a leading responsibility with the Circular Link company, I have a direct question to her about the circular innovation that the guys are doing at the company when it comes to coming up with the digital product passports and enhancing transparency through a lot many of intervention that she has done. My question is related to the product line that Circular Link, which is a RFID initiative that the firm has done. This seems to be a very interesting implementation of RFID. And can you please tell us more about the whole process, how you chip in the RFID into the system and how it is helping you, the consumers, especially the industry, we are talking about the textile one. So how you enrich the consumer experience through this RFID solution, please.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Joshi, and for the opportunity to talk more about this world first innovation, which is RFID, and I thought I'd show it to you. So that's actually the RFID there in the center. And so it is a metal thread, and it can actually be inserted easily at the production at the beginning. It can also be cut off. It is that long because then we can actually do distance for scanning. And that is actually the key. It's both B2B and B2C. B2B meaning that it uses UHF commercial scanners. So it is beyond just the simple one-off scanning that is a QR code. And that really is more for the engagement with the customer, whereas this part is B2B because it is to include the data and the information that we can lay down as the product goes through its life cycle from fiber to feedstock. So it's communicating and connecting data the whole time. It actually collects data into the cloud. So, other RFID tags just takes a few bits, whereas this is actually communicating back to the cloud. And initially, actually, it acts as a bridge to the existing brand's supply chain management system. So it actually plugs into their system, taking all that data from the beginning. And that's where it's exciting for me to be in India. I actually have been coming to India for 16 years now, and I live both here and in Australia. And I met with the Textile Commissioner last Friday to discuss about how we can scale this up and do this actually in India. So it's a very exciting prospect. So it literally will connect everything. And that is the opportunity that I'm hoping to bring to India, because I think really this country is perhaps one of the best placed countries for understanding circularity. It really is in our current systems, whether it is in the language or not. It really is how a lot of materials function and products function here already. And also just to let you know, it's not just for clothing. This can go into mattresses. So we're talking to product stewardship schemes, so for mattresses and also for tires. It's a little bit thicker for tires. So it can go into lots of different products, footwear, toys, etc. So it is about keeping all that information engaged there and engaging each stakeholder as it goes through its life cycle. Can I give you a little example of how that works?
Sure, please.
Thank you. So in stage one, we, like Devyani said, we need to be concerned about the design from the get-go. So thinking about it from maybe implementing zero waste policies, 3D design. So thinking about how we can kick out the waste from the beginning. There is an enormous amount of waste when it comes to sampling. So if a company is engaged in doing that, we're talking about adding the, because it actually scans to, just let me tell you, it scans even. So of course, in the big sector, we're talking about fixed systems for RFID readers, but this is also a small one. So this is a small RFID reader, and this is a second-hand Android phone. So with the app, it connects to that as well. So the idea is to engage not just the big businesses, but every small business along the way, because we are all going to be able to participate then. So bringing in the SMEs, bringing everyone, because that means everyone along the way, once they scan it, then it can, it's collecting the data for us. We're all participating in how we can map this and reuse these resources. So in stage one, that's where it can be implemented into new garments, but also because of the design of the structure of this, you can actually just slide it into existing garments. So we're also talking about engaging the high quality products for rental and repair, for example. We're working with a very large Scottish company who does rental and repair. They were using RFID, but like every other product for RFID, once the packaging walks out the door, it's torn off. And in fact, that is part of the EU legislation for managing EU waste. And so that's actually where this really comes into its own, because it has the ability, because it's washable, to varying different washability, but it also enables us to reuse. So you collect it back again, reuse, reset, and put back through the system again, or if it's not working, then recycle. So, and that's where I really like, as I said, to work with Indian companies, because the recycling sector is already very well versed with taking products and reusing it. So, but just going to the next section, which is the B2B, so that's stage two, that's where this product can be scanned from the manufacturing, from production, warehouse, all those fixed systems, because RFID really is coming in as the technology of the future. So that goes into ports, for example. But because even though the thread is very small, as I said, it's 10 centimeters in length for a reason, it's because we can actually bulk scan thousands at once. So that enables us to add that data in the beginning, but also, for example, when it comes to retail and it's going out, we found during COVID, there was an enormous problem where people were sitting there in the middle of the night going online and shopping and saying, I want 10 t-shirts, they're all different, but they end up only wanting one. So that the rest goes back. And then there is no system. It's enormously time-consuming and expensive for a brand to actually then, one by one, go and put it back into the system. So that created an enormous amount of waste. So that solves that problem in regards to the efficiency. As I said, it's a bridge, and we just reconnect that bridge. And then the product is then with the consumer. So the consumer can actually scan through a QR code, because each RFID thread has its own unique QR code. So the customer can scan and then get that messaging. They can understand what's on the RFID thread, because quite frankly, it's a glorified swing tag. It's giving them more information than what they did, because it's drilling down into the fibre and the chemical composition, which is what we need for the end piece. So this is helping to engage with the customers. And then getting to stage three, which is really where the brands will benefit, because this creates the return of investment. The ROI is increased for brands if they connect with partners to take back. As I said before, it'll be easy to take it back. But a lot of brands now are taking back so they can do their own rental. They can do repair. They can create partnerships with their local tailors. They can do partnerships with local fashion designers to redesign once the garment has actually, passed its what we call the wearable stage. And that can also be used for resale. So that means that we hope brands will be investing from the beginning to create products for longevity. So using good manufacturing, using textiles for longevity, showing 3D design. And when it gets to these stages, we're adding all of that data. So at the end, when it comes to stage 4, which is the recycling sector, that gets scanned and we know the full picture, but we actually do know it in real time anyway, because this is in the cloud. We can actually access all that information in real time. So this enables the brand to also show their circularity. Now, when it comes to the legislation that's coming in with the EU for digital product passports, they need to be able to show all this data. The Australian Seamless Product Stewardship Scheme, they're in fact charging brands 4 cents for every garment that they typically majority of the products actually in Australia is imported. we lost a lot of local manufacturing, and we're trying to regain that. But of course, so everyone who's creating a product, this is at the moment, it's not mandatory, but we hope it will be, and potentially that's what the Minister for Environment did actually state, saying the industry's got 12 months to actually get their act together, otherwise she will actually make it, legislate it. So they're taking 4 cents. Now, if the brand at the end of its life can prove that they've used 3D design strategies, they've used all these products for longevity, they can show their circularity, then they actually get to only pay 3 cents. I would like to see that we actually create a circularity rating that's actually separate from modern slavery and a living wage, by the way, but to show the circularity, so then the customer can actually quickly go, oh, that's 9 out of 10, I'm going to want to buy this product. But also, if we can see that product at the end of its life really has had this enormous life, then we can reward those brands and they pay 0 because the resources continue to use. Now, here's where the at the end scale that is actually really vital, because as the world's looking more to recycling, we can't jump from retail straight to recycling. We need to include the middle part, which is the reuse, redesign, repair, etc. But also with the recycling sector moving towards fibre to fibre recycling, we need to be able to communicate to them that they can do bulk scanning. As I said, that's where the UHF scanning, commercial scanning comes into its own. So automated or semi-automated, that gives fantastic work. That's actually where I started, as creating a circular textile waste service, working with people with disabilities, trying to identify the product from the label. And for 95% of it, we couldn't. So that's actually where the what solves the problem with that. But we need to be able to also identify the fibre and the chemical composition, so we're not seeing things like forever chemicals, say from workwear, back into fibre to fibre recycling that go back into, say, products for children or for any humans whatsoever. So now stage 5 is basically the collection of the data. We've collected all that data along the way, so then we can look at the metrics and the metrics for change. And that's where I liked what you mentioned, Devyani, is that we can then see if the product actually reached the charity sector, in 6 months because it was poorly made or poorly designed. And so adjustments can be made. And I think to work with brands, and as you said, Dr. Gupta, looking at things that, as we move through systems and changes that are happening, I really love the terminology of circular-ish. So we all embrace circular-ish. We're all kind of fudging as we go and doing the best that we can. But that's what I've really, enjoyed about designing the software, the Circ software, which we're designing here in India, connected to the RFID threads, because it just is collecting as much data as we can, and then everyone will get better and better. We'll get circular-ish, and then we'll get, better and better and communicate that, because data really is the key at the end of the day. So I apologize if that's a long response, but there is no elevator pitch when it comes to circular economy. I think we all know that.
I think it was great, so much insightful. So Circolinks, primarily they are the RFID threads, right? And a digital product passport concept you have been used when it comes to, designing the products. So it's a kind of, circular innovation that the lady was doing actually. And thank you so much for bringing us to such a great story, how the value chain you have created and the kind of, contribution you're taking from the users. It's a great, insightful information. Now we have with us speaker 4, who is Jay Kumar Gauravji. He's a senior advisor with climate change and circular economy at GIZ. And GIZ, as we all know, that German Corporation for International Corporation is a very famous, when it comes to association with India. GIZ is doing many of things, a lot of intervention they are doing for circular innovation, and it is boosting or helping government and social, agencies to bring a circular economy into the larger landscape in India. a lot many of interventions, international circular economy policy and capacity building is one of the role that GIZ is doing. Waste management, recycling programs, sustainable agriculture is something you are very much into. Resource efficiency increase, sustainable supply chain, a lot of things. More on circularity they are into, and GIZ, which is evolving as a great circular economy alignment with the broader mission of promoting sustainable development and supporting partnering economies like India, is something we are witnessing, and it is very effectively done by GIZ and the people involved. So I have a question on behalf of GIZ to you, Jaykumar. The question is that 2030 is only having 7 years away. What is your assessment about the goals achieved so far, and how pragmatic does net zero 2050 seems, which is a promise that the Prime Minister has made to during the Glasgow summit to the whole world? So, what is your intake on that, sir?
Thanks, Sudhanshu. So, although for India it is 2070 and Europe it is 2050, but whatever be the year of achievement, there is a lot of momentum already in place, and particularly in case of India, the 2030 target, there it's a possibility that it'll be the 2030 target might get achieved a few years earlier, because the deployment of renewable energy and other programs of Government of India which are looking at emission reduction, they are going quite well. And in terms of our work and highlighting the issue linked to what other speakers have been talking about, the circularity, resource efficiency, and climate change. So we work, the team that I am part of, it's climate change and circular economy, because 40% of the emission reductions that are required to meet our climate targets are going to come from circularity and resource efficiency. So this, like how much resources we consume, actually are very directly linked to how much emissions we are going to cause. And also some cases, the circularity related or resource efficiency related legislations are contributing to our climate goals, whether be it in the waste sector or in the textile sector, and even in other sectors. For example, the material requirement of a electric car compared to the material requirement of a internal combustion engine car, the entire emissions associated with extracting fossil fuels and then using them, and then emissions associated with just producing renewable energy and using it for mobility or for energy consumption for heating. So in my view, in response to your question, I think we are very much on track. It will depend a lot on the technological development, both on the side of actual implementation as well as the technologies that enable implementation or help in tracking. For example, what Ellison is working on, or what Uday talked about and Devyani mentioned. So while for instance, in one case, we are working a lot on plastic waste recycling, and although there is very good recycling happening in case of PET, in case of HDP, the high value plastics, the low value plastics like the MLP and thin plastic bags, they are the problem component in the dry waste, and their recyclability is quite low. The technology availability is limited, or it's too expensive currently. So these are the challenges which need both solutions in terms of actually recycling low value plastic like multi-layer packaging and low value plastic, and also tracking these types of waste streams. I'm really happy to see the technology solution that Ellison mentioned and actually showed. It can be applicable in case of plastic waste as well. And there's a huge challenge of tracking plastic waste, because illegally also a lot of developed country waste ends up in the global south, and countries which are themselves grappling with the challenge of plastic waste. Same is the problem with electronic waste. So much of electronic waste ends up in Africa and is managed by the informal sector in a very environmentally unsustainable manner, because this type of tracking, regulation, enforcement is lacking, or people find ways to escape those regulations. So this monitoring systems, reporting, verification, and kind of momentum around pushing the technologies that recycle, like achieve actual recycling, achieve actual emission reductions, are going to be very effective. And I'm very hopeful that for Europe the 2050 target and for India the 2070 target are reachable, and the momentum around technology development as well as deployment should be maintained or strengthened to help achieve these goals.
Right. Great. Great interventions. We have Allen Author Foundation, Allen Mark Author Foundation, which is a non-profit organization which involved into working to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. And the foundation has developed a number of tools and resources that are helping the government and the many businesses across Europe and UK for adapting the circular economy practices. So, since we have Divyani Hari with us, I wish to take my second question, which is more related about the responsibility of how the Center for the Responsible Business (CRB) is playing in promoting circularity. Like we have a highly standardized, benchmark like MacArthur Foundation. So, how CRB plays a role when it comes to MSME sector, and can you bring some examples, some use
Sure.
cases, or some
So
examples?
I can touch upon what we do, and if with your permission, I think there's also a question in the chat box I wanted to understand, and I can quickly address that at the end of my the question that you have posed, Dr. Joshi. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, like you've mentioned, CRB is a think tank, right? So, our role, what we look at is that how can we facilitate multi-stakeholder collaboration, dialogues, when we are talking of a particular challenge. If I look at circularity in particular, and let's take the apparel sector, we've got experience in circular electronics, circular apparel, to some extent, limited extent in food waste, but that's something that we are building up upon. Is that when we talk about circularity, first is also building that awareness, that knowledge, and that context, right? When we look at a concept coming really from outside, it may not always speak to our context or our reality, right? When we talk about circular economy in India, we have most of the value chains here. If I look at apparel, I have from fiber till the end of consumption, right? So I can't just be focusing on waste. So I have to start from the growth of that fiber to how it is processed, to how it is designed, to how it is transported, how it is consumed, and what do we do after consumption. So as a think tank, some of the things that we've played is that when we talk about circular in our context, then what does it really mean? Can we look at a framework that works for India, right? And that can involve the other stakeholders. So that's something that we've looked at. The other thing also is to take note of local wisdom, etc. Not everything is coming externally. There is a lot that is already happening on the ground, right? The formal informal interface that Mr. Gupta touched upon is a very important reality for us, and it's going to stay. Now what we have to really figure out is that when we are talking about circular, what is that handshake, right? So understanding that what your local wisdom is telling you, what are some of those circular practices. We see that in agriculture also. When we talk about regenerative agriculture, it's not bringing everything from outside, it's actually reviving some of the earlier practices that you had. If you talk about circular clothing or even electronics, we had a habit of really passing it on and using it for the longest time possible, and unless it becomes a rag full of holes, we were not really willing to throw it out. It's changed recently because we've changed consumption habits. So when it comes to it, first understanding what the context is, can we develop a framework? Then where can we place considerations for policy, right? Because we primarily work with businesses. Now, when we work with a business, we do awareness and capacity building on this is what circularity is. This is how you could look at a toolkit or framework to assess your circular options and to understand where you can embed it. Then it is, putting them in touch or trying to understand what are developments that are happening. So through case study development, through dossiers that we have created, then what are the technological advancements that are happening, bringing that information together as well, right? Putting information together, that what are some of the developments on the ground and how do you link policy to that. Right now, for example, if we have policy which doesn't really take cognizance of what are the innovations, what are the developments. I have a startup policy, right, and a fairly robust startup policy. Now, can I go and embed circularity in that policy? Right? Can I actually center state startups that are giving me circular solutions, that are keeping materials in loop, that are phasing out? So doing those kind of things, but getting all the stakeholders together, right? And Alison has talked about, you start from fiber and you go all the way to where it's being used, and it's important. So how do you take everyone on the journey along? And I quite liked Alison's example that it works for everyone, right? The biggest challenge you will face. So even, and for that, the first step is speaking to each other, getting different kinds of stakeholders together. A brand has very different resources, very different motivations from an SME. An SME may largely do it because a brand is asking it to start with, but there is a business case for the SME. Can we develop that business case as well? So when we've looked at circularity, you can find that we've looked at policy notes, we've looked at case studies, we've looked at frameworks, we've looked at multi-stakeholder engagements to really put these things together. See, we are not a technology solution provider, but we can bring the relevant stakeholders into the conversation. We can create a dossier and say, okay, these are technologies that we are seeing, this is interesting, or this is an organization that can help. So those kind of linkages is something that CRB does, and we are very keen also. And I know that Kumar Gaurav touched upon this, the perspective of the global south. Right now, sustainability, circularity, all these are discussions which are two-way. It's not that it is just coming from the global north and we are following. So that as a think tank is also something that, look, this is how we've looked at circularity. These are the practices that we are having. This is the impact that we have had, and this is what, so especially when we are coming into global discussions like the passport, for example, right? Now, the environmental passport, I think, is great, but I think we need to look at a social aspect to that as well. Because for us, it is as important how you produce, on who produces, in what conditions. Did we displace jobs? Because we were looking at the most efficient environment solution. Did we actually take away jobs without creating alternate ones? Those are all important considerations for us. And those are conversations that we bring to the fore as well. So not a hardcore solution, but I think we have a lot of moving pieces that we try and bring together. If I can quickly take note of Manju's question on where does India stand on circular apparel, big question, right? It's a big question because if you look at apparel, it's very, very diverse. I'll tell you both what is working well and what are things that we need to focus on. I think it's a very exciting stage when we come to circularity, and it is for various reasons, right? Climate change, okay, this is not exciting, but it's a reality. Climate change is beginning to impact our businesses. We are facing the brunt of it. Regulations are changing. I think Alison has touched on it enough that there is a lot of change coming externally, which will make it imperative for businesses to look at circularity, right? But it's our own resilience also that will get impacted. That will positively be reinforced. I'm not just doing it because somebody else is asking me. I'm doing it because I sense that if I use less resources today, I have actually prepared a better business model for tomorrow, right? And I am already prepared to handle whatever change is coming, and change is coming fairly quick. We've made a climate like a net zero commitment by 2070. But if you are part of global value chains, you don't have 2070, you are looking at 2050, right? So there are different timelines that you're looking at. The good thing is that there is definitely far more understanding. So let me tell you what's working well, that circular apparel is not necessarily a new word now. There is definitely more understanding on this. There are a lot of Indian brands. You can look at Welspun, you can look at Arvind, you can look at an Aditya Birla, which are showing what are good practices. There are a lot of SMEs, who are suppliers who've chosen to adopt circular practices, sustainable practices. There are a lot of startups and innovators who've come in, right? Who are looking at waste, who are looking at sustainable materials, who are looking at traceability, who are looking at working with agri residues and bringing them back into value chain. So all that is working well. One very strong thing in the apparel and textile sector is also now the regulatory focus, because the ministry is looking at it very intently, right? There is a dedicated person. You talked about Alison speaking to the textile commissioner. You have a joint secretary who's responsible for sustainability and circularity. They have demonstrated a lot of openness in inviting input, trying to understand what's happening across the country. Can we create awareness on what is already happening, right? Now, where we need to focus more in manufacturing, in SMEs, we have to take this conversation deeper. We have to make it a little more doable for them. They're already doing it. Like, there are different aspects of circularity, right? Energy efficiency is one, water efficiency is another one, chemicals that we are using, that is another big thing, right? And chemicals is not just in manufacturing, chemicals in what we use in the care of the garments. We as consumers are just not aware of the impact that we have when we send something for dry cleaning or the detergents we are using. So on a lot of fronts, a lot is happening. We need to pull it together. But I think a big missing piece, to be honest, I would say, is the customer, right? There is an aware customer, but it's a very small percentage of the entire customer base. Whether we will be able to convert everybody, no. There is a very price sensitive customer, and we have to respect that. That there is a layer of customer who's very price sensitive. But I think somewhere we are a little reluctant to change our consumption model significantly. Now, we were not a very heavy consuming society, right? We used to have certain festivals, we went and changed the consumption model. Fast fashion came in, affordability came in, lifestyles change. Like Alison said, I need one t-shirt, I will order 10. I have nothing better to do, I will go shopping, right? Now, unless you engage the customer and say that, look, you have an equally important role to play. It is how you are consuming, how much you are buying, what do you want to buy? Are you asking the question? Are you disposing responsibly? Are you willing to use your garment for the longest time possible? A company will be able to make just so much commitment unless a customer. So I think that bit, is something we can definitely do a lot better. So exciting. We've not really done a complete analysis of how we are doing as a country, but I can tell you as a fact that there is a lot of exciting stuff happening. In fact, Dr. Joshi, I would actually say that you can make an entire introduction based only on Indian examples, that you may not have to go to the Nestle's and Danone's and external. You can actually look at it, which is great stuff. We are perhaps not talking enough about it, and we don't have to stop at talking, right? But it's only when we talk is when we show others a way that, look, this is happening, this is possible. It may be, to me, there's a very simple thing. Sustainability, circularity in the short run are inconvenient, but it's an inconvenience that we all have to take, and it will become a way of life as it used to be earlier. So I do not know if that answers Manju's question, but that is in a nutshell what I would like to say about where we are in the apparel sector for circularity.
Many thanks, ma'am. Many thanks, Divyanji. Let us continue with where we were. So we have startups, like she was telling, we have Ecolife's Recycling, which is an Indian, startup, which recycle the e-waste and do the urban mining. We have Loop Global, which is again an Indian company, which leads to a lot of efforts they're doing on recycling the packaging material for various consumer items. And now I have a question with Mr. Gupta. So this is more, more about the standing and the roles that the think tanks do, or the Center of Excellence do when it comes to doing the research and doing some sort of, research on ground and creating policy and impactful policy implementation. What's your take on this, sir? Gupta ji.
Yeah, Dr. Joshi, I think you have asked me a very difficult question because I have seen things from the business side. But I think I'll try and answer your question in a way that the major role of a think tank, I think, is to create a lot of do tanks in this ecosystem. And that's what I think Devjani also touched about. She talked about collaboration. She talked about multi-stakeholder kind of engagement. Policy is one. Policy implementation is another issue. How do you implement policies? So, in terms of Center of Excellence, I think it has got a slightly different kind of connotation. And when I come to the real role of a think tank, I think it is to take everybody together and go towards a very successful implementation of the policies that come up in the society or in the regulatory framework. This is my short answer, but I think Devjani, you should take this question, and you are in a much better position to answer this.
Sure. I think we'll let the other panelists have their round and I can come back to it, Dr. Joshi.
All right. So, very quickly, we have a question. I believe that Mr. Rajesh has some. Okay. So, let us take it to what's your take on the. Alison, would you like to take the question?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is more related. There's a huge question here asked. It's more about the government of India. So let us take this question to, I believe.
I think I can try, and maybe Jaykumar can also give it a shot, right? So I am Mr. Rajesh. I'm actually just going to speak from my experience earlier when I was looking at renewable energy and bioenergy, right? It's not current. That's a disclaimer that I am putting out there. And I have also seen biomass-based solutions at a smaller scale also. Recently, we came across someone and they talked about biomass solutions. And I think now, first, I want to understand when we talk of investment, is it from the financing perspective that a company is ready to set up, but they're not getting the financing? I'm interpreting the question in that context. And see, from an investor's point of view, it is whether the risks are adequately addressed or not, right? One is biomass, the cleanest solution, we don't know. Two, whether I know that earlier there were challenges in securing the supply of biomass, which investors used to have a problem with, that, do I have a steady state? I think some of those questions are being addressed, but three also are the challenges that, do I tilt the market? So there is limited perhaps understanding. You need to create. One of the things that was happening was also trying to create a taxonomy, right, which was to help the bankers and guide them and say that this is a viable option for you to invest or finance in. I think that's a piece of work that's important to take, because see, look at it from a financier's or a banker's perspective, right? They were supposed to finance. Now they have to suddenly understand technologies, new models, new systems, new risks, which they do invest in. It's not that they don't invest in, but there is a certain extent to which they will be able to do that. You do have detailed project reports, and a report is supposed to address all these questions, but that doesn't always necessarily get translated to addressing all the risks that a banker may find. Okay, and I think that's where the hesitation perhaps comes in. I'm sure there are other aspects to this as well. The other thing is that vis-a-vis other options, where the push of the government is right now. Even if I look at solar energy, my grid connected took off much better. Large scale grid connected took off much better than solar rooftop. I think, Jaykumar, you can probably support that here. But in the solar rooftop, we are nowhere close to the target that we wanted. Whereas in the grid connected, we've definitely. So it is also where the bankers see perhaps clearer policies, a greater impetus, more push, the kind of organizations who are providing the solution and whether they are bankable or not. The biggest challenge they may also find is new ways of financing. As long as we look at traditional collateral-based financing, these challenges will remain. Right, because your biomass solution, now I do not know at which scale also you are talking about, because if you're talking of smaller scale, then the bankability of the solution provider is also an issue. On a larger scale, that may not be that much of an issue, but then I think more the operating challenges, the feedstock securing challenges perhaps are an area of concern. But that, like I said, is past knowledge. So I'll have to find this out a bit more for you and get back to you on that.
Thanks, Devyani. I'll just like to add some points from my side, Sudhanshu, in response to this question. So, I would take biomass and municipal solid waste separately. Starting with the municipal solid waste management sector, like it was a non-existing sector, no? Like the first municipal solid waste management rules came in 2000, and then they got revised in 2016. And when they came in 2000, there were no, now we have the Swachh Bharat mission, Clean India mission, 30% subsidy from the government side, and there's so much of momentum around it, which was non-existent earlier. So there is now there is an opportunity to get into the municipal solid waste management sector. We have the EPR mandate in case of plastic waste. We have better payment mechanisms from the urban local body to the waste management companies. And still, there is a lot of challenge in developing the trust among financing institutions to lend to these companies. So, in one of our projects, which is titled Waste Solutions for a Circular Economy in India, we are working with SIDBI. So, SIDBI is our partner, and we are providing partial debt guarantee. So, if you take a loan of, let's say, 10 crores, you can get a guarantee of 5 crores from our project through SIDBI, and 5 crore collateral you will have to mobilize from other sources. And generally, banks would ask for 100% collateral, and that sort of limits the ability of entrepreneurs and companies in general to get into this business. Because if I had money, why would I go to a bank to ask for a loan to do that same business? Or if suppose people put their house or some property as a collateral, but once you have put it for one project, the second project is not possible, because generally people have limited personal guarantee or property options. So and then equity is another option to finance, like raising equity. And there are some new funds that have given a lot of equity investment in companies that are in the waste management sector. So the waste management sector is improving, and the situation is a lot different, but still quite challenging. If somebody is interested, in the participants who are attending this call, if you are in the municipal solid waste management sector, you can contact us. We are implementing this debt guarantee program and technical assistance program for entrepreneurs in the waste management sector. Now, coming to the biomass sector, there are few successful players like Punjab Renewable Energy Services Company, PRESPL, but it is even more difficult than the waste management sector, because in the waste management sector you have some control, or some like the moving or the parts that are creating risks for you are limited. You have an urban local body that is providing you the waste, or some bulk waste generator was giving you the waste. But if you get into the agri biomass sector, you have maybe 10,000, 20,000 farmers who are supposed to be giving you biomass at a certain price, so that you can process it, make pellets, sell it to a company, or use it in your own boiler and sell the steam. So there the risk is even higher, and therefore financing is even more difficult. Because if I am giving loan to a party that is having risk of one urban local body or one or two suppliers, compared to a party that is having risk of 10,000 suppliers. And this has happened in the biomass power plant sector, that one person has set up a power plant thinking that he will get biomass at 2 rupees a kilo, 2000 rupees a ton. And when farmers ask for more money, then the plant economics just failed. You could not sustain the plant at twice, thrice, 5 times the price of biomass. So, biomass, I would say, is still quite risky, and very few players, that's why, are successful. In the municipal solid waste management sector, the situation is a lot better. And now you see even Reliance and Adani kind of getting into compressed biogas sector, getting into the municipal solid waste management sector. It may happen in the biomass sector also. Biomass as a like burning based technology is not now that competitive with CBG, because earlier this technology to convert agricultural residue to biogas was not so easily available and at that price. Now you can convert the biomass from agricultural residue biomass to compressed biogas, and biogas has a better price than burning that biomass and then making steam and selling steam. Also, the demand. So you would have a lot of gas consumers. Even cars that are running on CNG can use CBG, but you don't have that many people who are willing to use like biomass pellets. So biomass pellet based, heat based business, biomass to heat based businesses are still quite risky and difficult to implement, whereas waste and biomass to CBG businesses are more viable now, and there are several programs to support them. Thanks.
Well, there's a great answer. I believe that Devyani and Jay has made the life simple for us. And my basic understanding, I'm not a technical guy, but bioenergy sector is struggling with a lot of factors, including the lack of awareness, the technological challenges primarily, and regulatory, issues are always there. Financial constraint, like he was citing about, how the SIDBI is giving the contribution to the people interested for bioenergy related jobs. And there are a lot of, activities which are still required to be, be the part of the whole, efforts that the stakeholders are doing, or the companies interested into bioenergy, domain. So a lot of new reforms or efforts are required, as per my understanding. So rightly answered, I guess Mr. Rajesh Prasad has got the answer from both of our speakers, both of the speakers and the experts on the question he has asked. Yes, he's satisfied. Okay, right. So let us move with the next discussion, as we have. Alison. Alison is into a lot of innovation. Like she was telling, she has RFID thread. Now, we'd like to know that, we have another thing which is called as stitch stress textile, which is easy home composing textile, I believe, and which is very promising work, another promising work that you have done. And wish to know that how end of life period has been assessed. I mean, when it comes to, coming up with the composting, textile innovation that you have made, how you calculate the end of life period, and how the whole, circularity come into picture. So what's your, you need to reveal your innovation now.
I do. That's interesting because it is difficult to reveal that because I did actually do the R&D in China, but I am here in India to produce it here. It's called Circ-Stretch. Now, my other part of my business is STSE, the Sustainable Textile Supply Chain, and I have been working with mills in India from organic piece silk to handloom to regular cellulosics and organic cotton, for example, for about 8 to 10 years now. So looking at that, however, I thought, well, the biggest problem really is that where we still do require stretch, which is typically plastic. So looking at from the perspective of the plastics that we have in our clothing, and the increasing knowledge that they are attached to carcinogens and endocrine disruptors, and so what that's doing to our bodies and our environment. And so I wanted to look at that and help solve that problem. And it was actually during the COVID lockdowns in Sydney that I was listening to a lot of innovation that was coming from America, and someone had mentioned a Japanese BioStretch, and so I sat bolt upright at 2 o'clock in the morning and went, aha. So I've put that together with natural fibers. So we're using Tencel, Model, EcoVero, organic cotton, recycled cotton, not recycled polyester. The innovation really is to steer away from any kind of plastics that are causing all of those problems. So it's called Circ-Stretch, and it is because it's when we require stretch in our garments. So it's activewear, yoga wear, underwear, socks, apparel, for example. And it's a bio stretch, so we're looking at keeping as much, from the design perspective, as little stretch in there as possible. But this is the world's first cradle-to-cradle gold standard certified bio stretch. It's by the Japanese company Asahi Kasei. It's called Roika V550. So we do need very specialised partners to do this with, and so that's what I'm met with the Textile Commissioner to hopefully achieve that. So it is possible to now create a textile for all of those garments, but the benchmark, yes, it's going to be home compostable, but as you asked, how do we actually create some kind of metrics around that? And it is impossible when it comes to home composting, because everyone's compost is different. In Australia and many countries around the world, they are really pushing home compost because actually the carbon emissions and the methane, so emissions coming from food waste, is actually one of the largest problems that is causing our climate crisis. And so that is engaging the community to be able to do what they can themselves. And so that's where home compost is fantastic. And also looking at it from a waste perspective, that it is particularly those garments that are going to be put into the garbage bin and put out to landfill. And so it has the most important thing, however, with the Roika V550 is that it has the Hohenstein Institute certification that's proving that it's non-toxic as it breaks down in water and soil. So that really is the catalyst. So it's showing at the moment, the testing is showing that it'll break down in around 5 years. Again, depending on how good your home compost is, how microbiologically active your soil is. Might take 5 years in a dry landfill because it's not aerated. This is where I'd like to see it diverted for the purposes of the resources. So it still is useful resources, even though it's been worn close to the body, it can be cleaned enough and then brought back to its cellulosic values. And then also the elastane can also be brought back and then put through circular streams. But in situations where we don't have that available, when we're getting into the circular-ish streams, then people can actually put it in their home compost. And so it will be breaking down majority of the product. That's the reason why I've chosen the bulk of the products being natural fibers. That actually is about 8 to 12 weeks, according to Associate Professor Oliver Knox from University of New England. And then the rest of it might take about five years. But that is a very small percentage. We've got for example, there's underwear. And so it also comes down to what is the dyes as well. So this is activewear. This has got 35% stretch, but socks should only have 5% stretch. So that component will break down really quickly, cause less carbon emissions, and because we're also using eco dyes and also eco digital printing techniques, then it literally will have less burden on people and planet. So that's really, our goal. But to continue to capture that, and indeed that's where the RFID thread will come in, because when it goes back to, say, the fibre-to-fibre recyclers, they'd be able to determine, this is Circ Stretch, and we know that it's Model and it's Roika V550, and it goes down to be appropriately fibre-to-fibre and safely recycled that way. So that's it for controlling an entire supply chain from a material, a textile, from fibre to feedstock.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the answer. Well, I have a question with Mr. Uday. You have such a great, and vast career in minerals. Almost 40 years of such a great career you had under your, and we'd like to know about the technological evolution that you have witnessed during the times, and how the things are being transformed from linear to circular economy when it comes to material as one of the important ingredient in the whole supply chain. And adding to this question, sir, the question is more pertaining to how MSMEs and the big firms are taking care of their technological evolution. So what is your, observation, I must say, about the whole change that you have witnessed in the last 40 years?
Okay, thank you, Pritoshi. What I have seen, let me start with the so-called hard-to-abate sector. And we used to call it have-to-abate sector because we are responsible for abating, whether it is emission or bringing more circularity. If you look at the complete steel sector, the resource efficiency has improved by 67% in the last 15 years. So, parallelly, I would like to give you an example. Back in 2012, I was reading a report and I was amazed. At that point of time, we didn't know about the terminology of circular economy and things like that. But there's a company called Nippon Steel in Japan. Today, they produce around 50 million tons globally. Those days, they were producing around 20 to 22 million tons, as I recall. The amazing part of their report was 99.5% of their output was recycled, and not recycled in the inner loop. As you know, there is an inner loop and there is an outer loop. They made products which generated revenue, and this whole range of products started from getting into cement processing, both as alternative fuel and alternative materials. It went into pavement blocks, it went into road manufacturing, it went into brick manufacturing, it went into soil nutrients. That was very interesting for me, as an aggregate for soil nutrients. It went into blue economy because they found with a lot of research that if they can plant the slags, particular type of particular processing, it rehabilitate and regenerate the coral reefs. I mean, that was amazing. 10, 15 years back when we are reading this report, it really caught our attention. In the home ground, if I talk about Tata Steel, huge amount of research has gone in the last 10 years. If you look at Tata Steel Indian plants today, 100% of their byproduct or so-called waste is, either sold or internally, 100% efficient. So a huge amount of not only research, but they have worked with their supply chain to get the right kind of machinery. They have worked with their supply chain or value chain, how to use it, because it were all joint collaborative projects. When you use it in the downstream, in the outer loop for making products, you need to bring the MSMEs into your fold and do the research, together. And taking lead from Tata Steel, today, if you go to JSW, go to JSPL, go to the secondary steel manufacturer, everybody has taken the, exemplary action that Tata Steel has taken, and they are trying to follow the same path. The other technology that I have seen, which has evolved over a period of time, it's Industry 4.0, and how they are using it to drive efficiencies more and more. It combines the IoT, it combines the data analytics, the big data, as you talk about it. When I look at, again, Nippon Steel, they have got 7 big factories, across Japan. All are interconnected. And how does it help, this kind of technology? Because, the product of one plant gets into another plant. So if you talk about the simplest parameter, which is yield, which is the material that I recovered from input to output, it depends on maybe 200 parameters to get the right kind of yield and to improve the yield. And when these companies are all interconnected, process-wise, you can capture those data real time and work on the parameters to improve your yield continuously. So the same thing we have seen. Tata is, in fact, Tata Steel plants are in fact a lighthouse in McKinsey's capture in terms of interconnectivity. So we have seen this technology developing over a period of time, but I think the last 4 to 5 years, it has developed exponential. That's what has happened in this ecosystem. I can go on giving you many such examples, what has happened in the industry, whether it is in aluminium. Aluminium at one point of time, the intensity, the carbon intensity was almost 25. Today they have brought it down to 16 with the kind of energy transition. But if you look at the circularity aspect of aluminium. The metal can, this has been under kind of a circular perspective, right? Last 10 years. Today, the metal can recycling has gone almost to 80%. If you look at automobile usage of aluminium, it has gone to 95%. So, lot of research, lot of technological intervention has come in to bring it up to this stage. Both these hard-to-abate sectors that I have worked with and I have seen it in the last 40 years.
So, yeah, thank you so much, sir. Let me have the last quick question with everybody. Jay Kumar, how you see the circular innovation as being, have you foreseen circular economy in the domain of yours? How innovation coming along in the next 10 years, probably?
So I expect the cost of technologies that are available currently to go down significantly, because that is one big bottleneck. Right now, if you have to apply, I'm not aware about Allison's pricing, but even for these QR codes, it started at like 100 rupees per household to put the QR code. Now it is 10 or something. So it should become like really, really cheap to use these technologies. And then the regulation has to get more and more stringent, because
Correct.
the regulation is lax and enforcement is not there, then people will not care about it. I mean, we are a subset of the population, the larger population, that has no clue about the environmental issues, and their lives have so many other things to bother than to bother about sustainability.
Thank you.
So it has to become like a mainstream kind of through regulation, through pricing, and we have to compete with the linear economy. It's not that circular economy will suddenly become mainstream. We have to be very competitive. We have to push it through regulation, through markets, through technology, and awareness is a very big component.
Thank you so much, Jay. The same question to Devyani ji. I mean, how you foreseen the
not a very different answer from Jay. So
Okay.
I think it has to become mainstream. And the thing is, you have to align, because right now the carrot and stick approach has to be balanced. Right now, for businesses, I think it is. I'm speaking from a business perspective. It will have to become the way forward. But then a lot of things, right? Is policy supporting it? Is the customer asking for it? Is the ecosystem developed, to facilitate it? Right now, if I have to use recycled, is recycled easily available? Is recycled certified? Is recycled of a certain quality? Is it comparable, like Jay said, to virgin material? So those are things that will have to fall into place. And there is some work starting to happen, but I think we have to sort of bring the different stakeholders together to move at the same time. And it can't really be the responsibility. And somewhere I think economic systems have to realign and have to relook at how they distribute value across value chains. We still, I think one of the big challenges we face is that the value or the economic profit tends to remain concentrated high up in the value chain, whereas effort is expected across the value chain. So unless we relook at distributing those profits and value a bit more, we are not looking at a long-term change. Then, we are always looking more at the stick than really looking at the carrot being given more judiciously across. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. What's your take on this, Allison?
Well, of course, governments play a great role, both in investing in the beginning and also the purchasing. But where we have thought about it for the RFID threads, and that was indeed my meeting with the government, was to ask them to underwrite a bulk production, because that will enable us to actually do, like in all sectors, create bulk production. So that will bring us down to 11 cents US per RFID thread, and then be able to manufacture that in this country. So it is when it's collaborative and involving government and investors. And I'm happy to say last night we got our first US investment, which is very exciting, but to hopefully work with the Indian government, because they can be both at the manufacturing at the beginning of the supply chain, and then also take the resources and deliver the problem, deliver the solutions to the countries that are actually really further down the track of problems more than we are here in India in regards to circularity. I think circularity is perfect here. You know, I work with Panipat and the wool sector, recycling there. You know, we can take a lot of the resources here and continue that circularity. And so that's where RFID, if we all, work with the government, we can bring that price point down to deliver it to all SMEs and the large businesses. My concern is that now, solutions are really just being put forward to that more elite brands, and our focus really is to engage the entire stakeholders. So I would like to see government do that support, because we've actually found a way that government can be engaged, and then they actually get their money back in 3 years. So it's more about underwriting and production here. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alison. Thank you, everybody. Thank Jay. Thank Odessa, Alison, Divyani ji. And in a nutshell, we have circular innovation. We can say circular innovation doesn't just reimagine products and processes. It's transform our relationship with resources, turning waste into opportunity and sustainability into a new way of life. So with this thought, I invite Surabhi ji for her word of thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
What a thought-provoking discussion we just had. Thanks to all the speakers, Devyani, Uday, Jay, and Alison. We are surely enlightened. And thanks, Dr. Sudhanshu, for moderating the session so seamlessly. Let's click a picture together. Request all the speakers to turn on their camera for a while so that we can capture this moment, please. Uday sir, can we have you here? Okay. Thank you. Now, I would also like to extend my thanks to the wonderful audience that we had. We have got questions, we have got engaging audience, and I assume there are a lot of industry experts attending this webinar. And in case there's anyone who feels to be a good fit for our future discussions or would want to nominate someone as a speaker, do write to us at info@icce.com. The email ID is provided in the chat box. And our next topic of discussion will be from waste to value. How can we turn waste into a valuable resource and create a circular economy? This webinar will be held on 29th September at the same time on a Friday evening. Keep following our social media pages to receive more information on all upcoming events. You can also subscribe to our newsletter for the same, and the link is here in the chat box. Wish you all a very happy Friday evening and an amazing weekend ahead. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.